Hey everyone, Graham from Boost Performance here. It's been a bit since we've done any GR Corolla content on the channel here, but we're finally back in the garage with ours and got some exciting updates for you guys. There's a few reasons why we haven't had any GR Corolla content to do for a while. One, we've been super busy since the GR Corolla tuning launched. You guys and your tuning demand has been keeping us super busy. We're very appreciative of that. It's allowed us to really grow quickly with the platform, learn everything about these cars and give you guys awesome tuning. The second reason is we took some time to get our Subaru Time Attack car, Nasty, back on the track again. That car's been a ton of fun. We'll do some content on that car as well for those of you that are interested in that. But this episode's all about the GR Corolla. The third reason is we really haven't had a lot of super exciting updates to share with you guys on these cars that aren't easy enough for Limit Plus One to share or us to share on Facebook groups. But Flex Fuel's here, and this episode is all about that. So what I'm gonna do is a quick overview of everything needed to get your car going on Flex Fuel. For those of you that just want to know, how do I get there? You understand the basics of it. This will tell you how to get that going on your GR Corolla. Then I'm going to get a little bit nerdy and I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into Flex Fuel, talk about how it works, why it works, talk about the fuel system on these cars, what the limitations are, what kind of future upgrades we're going to need, and things like that. All right, so what do you need to do Flex Fuel? Well, first of all, you're going to need tuning. If you've already gotten tuned with us on EcuTech, then you'll be all set to get your car updated for Flex Fuel. If you haven't tuned your GR Corolla yet, then you're going to want to start there. You can go out to Limit Plus One and you can start with a tuning package and you'll be able to add on Flex Fuel from the beginning. The other thing you're going to need is a Flex Fuel kit. What that's going to do is send the ethanol content to the ECU so it can be used to control the Flex Fuel tuning. And then from there, we'll just need to do the tune to get you all set up to run pump gas, ethanol, or the blends in between. So let's take a look at the hardware first. All right, so let me pop the beautiful Eventuri engine cover off here quick so I can show you guys where the hardware is. Now, if you didn't know what you were looking at here, you may not even notice that it has a Flex Fuel kit on it, but the ethanol sensor is right here. So let me zoom you in here for a better look. All right, so here's a closer look. We are using the Stratified Automotive Controls Flex Fuel kit. They were the first ones to get something to the market that's nice and plug and play. So we ordered their kit right away so we could get it on the car and test it and make sure the Flex Fuel tuning is all good to go for you guys. So we have their kit installed here. The important part here is the ethanol sensor. These sensors are an OEM sensor that are used on Flex Fuel vehicles that have been fitted here to work on the GR Corolla. The mounting kit here holds it in a nice spot and it's connected to the low pressure fuel lines. So what we have going on here is this is the low pressure feed from the in-tank pump that comes into a T. One direction takes it through the Flex Fuel sensor and then into the fuel rail that feeds the port injection system. Those are the injectors that feed in a traditional sense before the intake valves. The other side of the line here comes over to the high pressure pump. The high pressure pump is driven by the camshaft. It takes the low pressure fuel, ramps it up to very high fuel pressure, and sends it through the high pressure rail to the high pressure injectors that spray directly inside the cylinders. This Flex Fuel kit comes with nice quick release adapters, so everything is very plug and play. You don't have to make any fuel lines or do anything like that. Then it's connected here to a wiring harness that runs through this cover for a nice clean look, and then goes through the firewall into the cabin. So as far as your hardware goes, that's it. It's honestly a pretty quick and simple installation to get this in here. Running the wire through the firewall isn't difficult either. There's a nice grommet available in the fender well to send that into the cabin. And then inside the cabin, this Flex Fuel sensor connects to a Z-Tronics ethanol content analyzer. What that does is it provides power and ground to the sensor and takes the signal from the sensor and converts it into a CAN bus signal that can be sent to the ECU. CAN bus is a network communication system that all modern vehicles use, and it's a great way of sending information to an ECU to be used for custom logic like this. So the Z-Tronics analyzer does that conversion and sends that information over CAN bus. There's a plug and play connection that gets made to the car, kind of behind the glove box. Again, everything on this kit is completely plug and play, no wires to cut, no splicing, no soldering, nothing like that. It's honestly a pretty easy installation that I feel like almost anybody could do in their garage. So that's great news. All right, now let's power up the car here and we'll show you guys the app. See if we can do this right on screen for you here, perhaps. Okay, so we'll go to My Car. Go to the dashboard. And now you'll see, we can see the true ethanol content right here. So that content is coming in from the ethanol sensor, reading into the ECU, and then being sent to the app. So you can monitor that real time as you change between your different blends of pump gas or pump E85. This makes sure that you don't go too high on the ethanol, which I'll explain why in a moment, and also make sure that you're high enough to get optimal power. We'll also explain what those blends are. But essentially, once you've flashed the Flex Fuel tune on here, you can monitor your ethanol content anytime using the app, which is very convenient. All right, so that's your overview of Flex Fuel, the hardware side, the software side. It's pretty straightforward and pretty simple. Now, let's dive a little bit deeper into Flex Fuel, into the fuel system of this car, and what the limits are, so you guys understand that a little bit better for those of you that are interested. All right, so first, what is Flex Fuel? Well, Flex Fuel just means you have the flexibility to run ethanol or pump gas. This is something normally only found on OEM vehicles. You know, a lot of GMs, typically US-based vehicles that have easy access to ethanol, they'll have Flex Fuel sensors so people can choose to run ethanol or not. Now, ironically, these vehicles aren't actually using ethanol for performance reasons, even though there's a huge boost there. The reason why Flex Fuel vehicles exist is because renewable alternative fuels can be a lot less expensive than pump gas, especially in places like we live in Iowa, where ethanol is often half the price of premium fuel and quite a bit cheaper than even regular gasoline. But there's also a huge performance benefit of ethanol. It's just a little bit trickier to implement, so we don't typically see it in OEM performance applications. So when we say we add Flex Fuel to something like this, that is a aftermarket thing that we're doing, that is custom logic that Ecutech is building into the tune to allow you to use pump gas or any blend of ethanol. Now, a lot of you guys might be familiar with our E50 tuning. That's where you blend a specific ratio of pump gas to ethanol to achieve a mixture close to 50% so that we can program the tune to work for that blend. With Flex Fuel, you no longer have to do that. You don't have to switch maps either, and you don't have to limit yourself to just an E50 blend. So why does ethanol make so much extra power? Well, it's a number of reasons. One, it has better evaporative properties. What that means is it cools down the air going into the engine, which allows for a denser air charge, which means more power. It also has a lot higher knock resistance. Ethanol blends above E60 to E70 typically have an effective octane of over 105 to even up to 110. When you combine that with a direct injection engine, you get even higher octane effectiveness, and that typically starts even from E50 and above. So what about the downsides to ethanol? There certainly are some. There's a lot of common myths and misconceptions that ethanol is bad for the fuel system, eats lines, kills things, and that's just really not true on modern vehicles. Yes, it's not good to leave ethanol in a fuel system for long periods of time, but when I say long periods of time, I'm referring to over 6 months to really over a year. If you're going to put your car away for storage, especially for the winter, not a bad idea to put it back on pump gas, but ethanol is not going to go bad in a month or even a few months. We've tested that thoroughly on our personal vehicles. The biggest downside to ethanol is honestly fuel system requirements. Because it doesn't have as much energy in a molecule of fuel, it does require a higher fuel volume to get the same amount of energy out of it as gasoline. What that means is we have to upsize the fuel system on a lot of older vehicles, or when it comes to these direct injection vehicles, we have to consider their limitations until we have upgrades available. Now, the GR Corolla has a unique fuel system that includes both direct injection and port injection. This is actually super helpful when you're trying to use ethanol in these cars because it allows you to easily upsize the port injectors and get more fuel capacity. Now, we're still working on figuring out good injector solutions for you guys at the time of this video, so stay tuned for that in the future. But for now, we can lean on both the factory direct injection and the port injection and have quite a bit of fuel supply. It's enough to run up to E70 to 75% from our testing on a stock turbo with full bolt-on safely. It's also enough to run up to 400 horsepower or a bit more on pump gas. Now, if you're trying to do a bigger turbo plus ethanol, you're going to have to wait until we get some upgraded port injection figured out, and we're also going to have to look at the DI side of the fuel system. So let's talk about that for a moment. Earlier in the video, I mentioned that the direct injection pump works off the camshaft, and it takes the low pressure fuel and ramps it up to very high fuel pressure. It takes it from a low pressure of about 70 PSI and ramps it up as high as 3,600 PSI. That allows you to get a ton of fuel into the cylinders, and that's important when you're spraying it directly in the cylinders. Now there's a downside to camshaft-driven high-pressure pumps. They make more fuel volume as the engine spins out. So what that means is that low RPMs, if we're trying to make high boost, we won't have as much fuel volume to work with as higher RPMs. So we do have to be careful. That's where the ethanol content comes in. The higher the ethanol content, the more fuel volume is needed. So we can run into situations where the pump can't deliver that at lower RPMs and the fuel pressure will fall off and have a hard time catching back up. That can cause us to run too far outside the injection window, which can cause misfires and even potentially engine damage. So it's very important we keep the fuel pressure on target, which means limiting the ethanol blends to what's considered safe. Based on my testing so far, up to E70 is considered safe. 75 usually works okay. Above that, we're running into limits. How are we going to get around those limits in the future? Well, we're going to be looking at low side fuel system upgrades to make sure there's enough fuel supply coming to the high pressure pump. And we're also going to be looking for companies to develop upgraded high pressure pumps. It might be a whole new pump, it might be new internals you swap out, but generally they can get higher fuel volume at the same RPM. That'll allow us to run ethanol a little bit easier. The good news is with direct injection, full power is usually available from E50 and up. That means you don't have to be looking for high ethanol on these cars to get the most power out of them. Typically between E50 and E60 is the sweet spot, and the convenience of flex fuel does allow you just to go to the pump and fill up and see where your ethanol lands. A lot of times you're going to land between 60 and 70%. You might see up to 75. And again, we'll see where the fuel pressure lands on that as we're checking logs for you guys. But you might also land at 85% ethanol. It's possible to be that high. In that case, the flex fuel makes it very convenient just to simply blend in a little bit of pump gas with your ethanol and land at an ethanol blend that is safe for the car. No guessing, no checking, no having to measure. You'll know where you're at all times. And if you end up too high, no problem. Just drive the car easy for a half day, top it off with some pump gas, get back to a safe blend, and you'll be good to go. All right, so there you have it on flex fuel. The software's been here for a little while, but we've been waiting for some kits to get made. Stratified has theirs out right now, and other companies are working on theirs. I'm sure they'll be pretty similar in nature, probably all using the Z-Tronics ethanol brain and just basically making it all nice and clean and plug and play for you guys. As far as the tuning goes, if you haven't tuned your GR Corolla at all, you can start straight off with flex fuel if you want to. You go out to Limit Plus One, order the EcuTech tuning kit, and choose the flex fuel add-on options, get the hardware you need, and you're good to go. If you're an existing tuning customer with us, you'll be able to upgrade your car for flex fuel. There's one of two ways to do this. If you already have dual maps with us, meaning a pump gas map and an ethanol blend map, which would be an E50 map, you can add on flex fuel. We will blend those two maps together. We'll check some data logs, have you go a little higher on the ethanol than E50, check that, and you'll be good to go. If you've only tuned pump gas with us because you've been waiting for flex fuel, no problem. We can take your existing pump gas tune, we can enable flex fuel, and we'll tune in the whole ethanol side of that map for you. Both those options are available on Limit Plus One to go order right now and pair with a flex fuel kit of your choice. If you guys have questions about flex fuel or anything about GR Corolla, feel free to leave those in the comments or reach out to Limit Plus One and they can answer those for you, no problem. Make sure you guys like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see some more content, and we'll keep that coming.